이사님의 프레젠테이션을 잘 보고 잘 들었습니다. 열정적인 발표 진심으로 감사드립니다. 특별히 지금 하시고 계신 일에 대해서 대단한 열정을 가지고 계시다는 것을 발표를 통해서 확인할 수 있었습니다. 저도 또한 조그만 시골에서이긴 하지만 한 10여 년 가까이 지역에서 발달장애를 가진 분들과 함께 다양한 예술 활동을 진행해 왔는데요. 발표를 들으면서 제가 상상했던 일들, 정말 이런 일이 되었으면 좋겠다, 이렇게 됐으면 좋겠다, 이런 일을 하고 싶다 했던 일들을 다 이루고 계시더라고요. 그 점에 대해서 정말 놀라웠습니다. 저 또한 조그만 기업을 만들어서 작품들을 전시도 하고 또는 판매도 하고 또는 디자인도 시도를 해보고 등등의 몇 가지 일들을 실제 시도를 해왔지만 그러한 일들은 굉장히 쉽지 않은 일이었고요. 그러면서 상당한 좌절도 겪고 했었습니다. 그런 점에서 발표해 주신 부분이 거기에 대해서 우리가 좀 더 자세히 알 수 있다면 큰 도움이 될 거라고 생각이 듭니다.
Sure. I think one of the things that's allowed us to be successful is that we've been doing this for almost 50 years. So my suggestion is to really start small with a project that you feel comfortable with and that slowly start to grow. And then look at the people in the world that understand and will help you. The people that have helped us have been artists, other artists, and people with disabilities, and some people at museums or galleries that really believe that what we're doing is important. So try to find a few people that will help you, and then start slowly, and don't give yourself too much pressure. Allow things to take the time that they take. That sounds very simple, but I think it's very, very important.
장애인 예술가들이 작품을 생산을 하고 그것이 현대미술씬에서 유통이 되어지고 또는 주목받아지고 그리고 그것이 주류 미술 속에서 예술로서 받아들여지는 이러한 활동들이 사실 간단한 일이 아니고 굉장히 어려운 일일 것 같습니다. 그러한 것을 어떻게 진행을 했는지 이것이 예술로서 받아들여질 수 있는 그런 상황이나 분위기를 조성해 갔던 어떤 그러한 노력들이 좀 있었을 것 같습니다.
Yes, there are a couple of things to discuss. One is I feel it's very important to make sure an artist's work is ready before you want it to be seen in a contemporary way. And I think that's true for any artist. So I think just because an artist has a disability doesn't mean that their work is good yet. So again, it comes back to the point of Creative Growth has had their artists working for many years. So we wait until the artist's career is developed enough. So that's the first thing. Make sure there's this significant, important body of work to show. Then the second thing is to look for people that have really unique vision within museums or galleries or among artists you know or students. There are people who will embrace your work and see your artist's work as being important and contemporary. And you have to look for them because a lot of people won't want to meet with you or to see the work. But look for your friends, look for the people that are really doing interesting things and ask them. And what happens slowly over time is that those people become leaders, and then the institutions and the people without new vision will start to follow them. So it becomes a process. One of the things that we've done also is bring our artists' work into art fairs for emerging artists, contemporary artists, where you'll see maybe art students and new ideas And there you'll meet interesting curators and collectors and people who want to understand your artists, and that will start to help your work advance.
작가들이 충분히 성숙할 수 있는 시간을 가져야 한다는 말이 상당히 인상적으로 들리거든요. 스태프분들이 무엇을 어떻게 하라고 지시를 하거나 이끌거나 가르치는 것이 아니라 매체 예술가들이, 장애인 예술가들이 접근할 수 있도록 지원해주고 도와주는 그런 차원에서 이제 운영을 하신다고 말씀을 하셨고, 저도 한 10여 년 활동을 하면서 그것이 저도 가장 바람직하다라고 저도 이렇게 느끼게 되었거든요. 시간을 쭉 지내오면서. 근데 그러한 어떤 방침을 가지면서 스스로 성장해 갈 수 있도록 오랜 시간 이렇게 지원하고 이렇게 지지해 줄 수 있는 그러한 아이디어를 크리에이티브 그로스는 어떻게 그런 아이디어를 갖게 되었는지 여쭤보고 싶습니다.
Yeah, the idea that the staff are artists and we allow the artists to move forward on their own is a very important idea to creative growth, and it's been a part of the way our organization works from the very beginning. So the founders, remember, creative growth is formed at a time when creativity and social change is very important. And they believed in a new way that creative growth will be sort of an artist's community or an artist colony, and that we'll all support each other and work together without expectations around time. And it's, again, very simple, but so important. And I think you see there are many programs for people with developmental disabilities that have all kinds of services. They'll have job training, they'll have education, they'll have recreation, and they'll have an art program. And often the art program is not run by artists, or if it is, it's seen as something to do for an hour or two. And we're going to make a specific project. We'll make cards to sell in the store, something like that. And that's just not what creative growth does. And I think you really, if you want your artists to be successful, you have to treat them as professional artists, which means give them great materials, give them artistic freedom, and support them and encourage them for as long as it takes.
CG가 설립될 당시가 1974년도면은 그 당시에 이 장애인들의 예술을 바라보는 시각이 아웃사이드 아트라든가 아르브르라든가 이런 어떤 개념으로, 그러니까 주류가 아닌 비주류, 어떤 생활미술, 어떤 그런 개념으로 이렇게 접근했던 그런 시대적인 배경을 가지고 있었을 거라고 생각이 드는데요. 그런 배경 속에서 CG는 특별히 이들의 예술 활동을 그런 비주류 아트가 아닌 현대미술의 한 중심에 놓을 수 있는 아이디어를 가지게 되었다는 것은 그건 상당히 좀 특별한 접근이었다고 저는 생각이 들거든요. 또 한편으로는 장애 예술을 다루는 입장에서 보면은 장애를 뭔가 이렇게 좀 개선을 시킨다든가 비장애인이 할 수 있는 것을 하게 한다든가 이런 식의 접근도 상당히 많이 있는데, 그러한 그 두 가지 관점들을 CG는 배제하고 나왔다고 한다는 것은 상당히 좀 혁신적이고 그렇거든요. 근데 그런 어떤 철학적 배경을 어떻게 가질 수 있었는지에 대해서는 좀 더 궁금합니다.
Yes. Well, it didn't happen immediately. And I think for about 10 years, creative growth spent time developing its artists and its program in the studio and the gallery. And we don't use the word outsider art for our artists. We feel that people with disabilities are often outside of culture enough that we don't like to give them that label. But there are people who collect and are interested in outsider art who are interested in our artists, so we respect that. Some of those people also have an interest in contemporary art. So you look for the people that like both, and then you try to make those connections. At the end of the day, really, if the art is interesting, it's contemporary. If the artist is making the work today, it's contemporary. So you have to keep saying the same things. This is an artist working in our studio, so he is a contemporary artist. If the work is good, then it's good art. And when people try to categorize it differently, you have to resist that. In terms of the part around therapy, that's very interesting because I'm not a therapist. Art therapy is a very specific program, and we don't do art therapy. Although we say something therapeutic happens to all artists, they grow and they become more engaging or creative people by making art. So that's therapeutic, but that's different than art therapy. So we believe in that. The other thing that's very important for me is that whenever we try to make the decision for an artist about what they should do, if that artist has a disability and we don't have a disability, we're not respecting the culture of disability that is such an important part of the artist's work. I want to know why Dan Miller's work is so interesting. I want to know how Monica Valentine can feel color in her hands when she makes the sculpture. If I was telling them to, look at flowers on a table and draw a picture of that, what they bring to their art as people with disabilities would be lost. So believe in what the artist can do. And if it's being done right now, it's contemporary. You just have to keep saying it again and again. The people that will believe you first are other artists. So find the artists that understand what you're doing and have them help you. Have them show your artist's work to their gallery. Do a show together. Have them come and work with your artists. Find the people that understand you and work with them.
CG 센터의 규모가 굉장히 큽니다. 물론 저 입장에서 굉장히 크다고 느끼는 건지 아니면 미국에서는 그 정도 규모가 엄청나게 큰 것이 아닌지 이것도 사실 궁금하고요. 그리고 예산이 320만 달러 정도, 한 300만 달러가 넘어간다는데 그 예산 규모도 사실 제가 보기에는 엄청나게 커 보입니다. 근데 그 큰 규모의 이 기관을 유지하기 위해서는 일정한 예산이 비용이 끊임없이 이렇게 돈이 들어와야 하는데 예술작품을 판매를 한다든가 기부금을 받는다는 것이 일정하게 유지가 될 수 있는가? 그것이 유지가 안 되면은 사실은 존립할 수가 없게 되는 거거든요. 거기에 대한 어떤 믿음이 있으신 건지 아니면 실질적으로 그것이 가능할 수 있는 어떠한 시스템이나 환경이 충분히 구축되어 있는 것인지 그런 부분을 좀 더 확인해 보고 싶습니다.
Yes, excellent questions. So first, size. Creative Growth is very large. To our knowledge, we're the largest program like this in the world. So it's not typical to see that many artists. So don't be afraid of that or think you need to be large. For us, it works because we have a very big building that we own. And that's where the people come to. And that's just something, again, that's grown over time. Many of the programs we work with in the US are quite small. There's a program, for example, in Texas, where two women started it in a shipping container, a cargo container in the backyard, and they have 2 or 3 artists. But those artists are excellent, and they don't have a lot of money, and they do it. So there are different models that work for different communities. If you are in a small place, you can have a small program. So don't be worried about that. In terms of money, in the United States, there's not a lot of government support for artists or disability. So yes, it's very, very stressful to raise the money every year. during the COVID pandemic. Some of our big programs where we raise money, we do big events and have people come to the gallery and have dinners and fundraisers, all that stopped. So it's a very stressful time in terms of how we will raise money. I do a lot of that fundraising, and it's difficult every year. There is no promise that we will continue in the future, other than the fact we've done it for 48 years, and we use history as our guide to move forward. Because we have different revenue sources, some from the state of California, some from art sales, and some from donations, we can adjust them when one isn't working. Hopefully we'll get money from the other and keep going that way. But it's difficult. And again, there are programs that I know that have very small budgets and they do a good job. So you don't need 160 artists and $3 million to be successful. Some of the programs that I know in Europe, for example, receive a lot of money from the government. And they tell me that, oh, we're not so ambitious or successful because we just get our money and we do what we want to do. And because creative growth has to work so hard for your money, you do all these projects like clothing and soap and design and art fairs because we have to. So sometimes there's an advantage to not having enough money.
제가 다른 자료에서 그 CG에 참여하고 있는 그 장애인 예술가들이 본인의 작품을 판매하는 것과 관계없이 일정한 금액의 소득을 지급한다고 이렇게 제가 들은 바가 있거든요. 그랬을 경우에 그것은 어떤 방식으로 진행이 되는 것인지, 그리고 그 금액을 지급할 때 어떤 기준에 의해서, 뭐 예를 들어서 뭐 시간 최저 시급이라든가 어떤 그런 금액의 어떤 기준이 있는 것인지 그것 또한 알고 싶습니다.
Right, yeah, I forgot to mention that. We do pay all the artists. So we pay the artists every 3 months. So in the third month, we pay artists for their sales of work. But during that time, we develop sort of a collective pool of money based on things like selling T-shirts or other sorts of projects that we've done where the artists have worked collectively. And then that collective amount of money is divided equally among all the artists. So it's not a lot of money usually that they get when we pay everyone, but they all feel a part of the community. And for many of our people, any amount of money is an achievement for them, and they feel like they've been successful and that they're a professional artist, and it really helps us all feel like we work together.
CG 센터에 참여를 하고 있는 장애 예술가들이 뭐 이렇게 모든 유형의 그 장애인들에게 열려 있다고 제가 이렇게 들은 바가 있는데, 그럼에도 불구하고 발달장애인이 대다수를 차지한다고 이렇게 들었습니다. 그 발달장애인이 대다수 참여하고 있는 어떤 배경이 있는지, 그런 이유가 있는지, 그 참여하고 있는 예술가들의 그 상황을 좀 더 알고 싶습니다.
Yes, we do serve people with all kinds of disabilities, although most of our people have developmental disabilities. And there is a few reasons for that. One, primarily, is that in the state of California, if you have a developmental disability, you get some support from the government. So you get transportation allowance, you get some housing allowance, you get access to a social service counselor who will help you, get into a program like Creative Growth or do something. So it's easier for us to reach people with developmental disabilities, and they have more support in terms of how they would come to our program and participate. For example, people with mental illness don't have those same supports, so they're very difficult to reach or difficult to arrange transportation for, or to have them participate. But we do have people with mental health disabilities. We do have people with physical disabilities. We have people with cerebral palsy. We have people who are deaf or blind. So it is a very mixed population. The other reason I think that we have primarily people with developmental disabilities is that, disability is not one thing. It's a complicated thing, and people with different kinds of disabilities have different needs and issues. And, people with physical disabilities who are, very academically trained, might not have an interest in our program in the same way. People with mental illness sometimes require a different kind of environment. Maybe it's quieter, or maybe they need medication, or maybe they don't like to be around people as much. So I think our community exhibits the sort of qualities of the kind of space that people with developmental disabilities like to be in.
네, 설명을 듣고 보니까 제가 꿈꿔왔던 그런 모습이에요. 센터 모습이. 그러니까 당연히 그럴 거라고 생각이 듭니다. 그리고 이제 와서 이제 여기서 활동에 참여를 할 때 거기에 예를 들면 작업 중에 부상을 입는다든가 아니면 어쨌든 활동 과정 속에서 일어날 수 있는 사소한 사고든 어쨌든 그러한 케어에 대한 부분이 있을 거라고 생각이 들어요. 이제 이런 부분에 대한 책임성 부분이 있을 거라고 생각이 들거든요.
In terms of liability, we are all one of the only really condition of sort of participating at creative growth as an artist is that you have to be relatively self-sufficient. You have to be, if you take medication, you have to be able to take it yourself. You have to be, behaviorally independent enough to be able to, eat your own lunch, be able to go to the bathroom, and, be able to sit in a room with other people most of the day without causing any harm to anyone else. So those are our only conditions. The staff, we are all trained in practical first aid. So we know what to do if there's a seizure or a burn or an accident, and we will respond accordingly or call an ambulance or help. That doesn't happen very often, but it's almost the same as having your child in a school. If there's an accident, the teacher helps. But it's really the responsibility of the person to be able to take care of themselves, and we will help. So we've never really had a problem like, we've had people get very sick and we have to send them to the hospital, but that could happen to them at home as well. So I'm not sure if I'm fully answering the question, but that's just what we do. And we have one person on the staff who's kind of a nurse who will help if there's a seizure or someone feels sick, and we will send the person home or contact a family member or get them to a hospital.
이제 스태프분들이 계신데 스태프분들이 CG 센터에서 일을 할 때 필요한 기본적인 그러니까 장애인들과의 관계 속에서의 커뮤니케이션이라든가 또는 이 작업 방식에 대한 기본적인 태도라든가 이런 것들에 대해서 어떤 그 스텝을 선발하거나 또는 스텝을 한테 어떤 교육을 하거나 어떤 그런 시스템들이 어떻게 이루어지고 있는지 그것이 궁금하고요. 또한 스태프들한테도 일정한 급여가 이렇게 지급이 될 텐데 거기에 맞는 어떤 임금 체계나 이런 것들을 갖고 계신지 그것 또한 궁금합니다.
Yeah, so most of the staff learn from each other. So communicating with our artists is very important. There's no single lesson you can have in terms of how you communicate with a person with a disability or any other human being. You have to understand that that person will communicate in different ways. Some of our people don't use language. Some of our people are blind. Some of our people are deaf. Some of the teachers know sign language. Some of us don't. So really, we learn how to communicate with everyone as an individual. The best way for teachers to learn how to do that is to partner with the other teachers and learn from them. Because you can say, so a new person would come and be in a group with another teacher and artists. This is Dan, this is how Dan speaks. Dan doesn't speak. Or this is what he likes in the morning. When he does this, it means he wants to go to the bathroom or he's ready for his lunch. So we learn from each other in terms of what everyone's communication pattern is. And everyone, you will learn if you pay attention. So it's helpful to learn from the people that already know. Also, a lot of the people that we hire as staff have volunteered or been interns when they were in art school. So they already sort of know our people, and we can understand that and believe that they are familiar with who we are and that they'll do a good job working with our people. So I would suggest a trial basis like that and learning from other people. And then in terms of staff employment, we have about 20 staff. Most of them do not work full time. Most work 2 or 3 days a week with us and they are paid because we encourage them to have their own artistic practice and career. So a lot of our artists will work with us for a few days and then work in their studio making their own art for a few days because we like them to be artists as well. And we also have partnerships with art schools where interns come and volunteers who come and help as well. Essentially, they're paid by the hour, but your schedule is fixed. So if you're working 3 7-hour days, for example, you'd be working for 21 hours and that is your salary and that's what we pay you. It's fairly organized. It's not whoever wants to come in for a week, how many hours, so it's scheduled and organized that way.
지난 한 2년 넘게 코로나 때문에 굉장히 어려움이 많았거든요. 우리 같은 경우도 많은 센터들이 문을 닫아야만 했고 당사자들이 센터에 오지 못하는 그런 사태들이 있어서 심지어는 온라인으로 커뮤니케이션을 하고 활동하고 했던 사례들이 많습니다. CG 센터 같은 경우는 그 코로나 국면에서 그 참여하는 데 있어서 어떤 어려움을 어떻게 해결했는지 알고 싶습니다.
Yes, in California, COVID rules in America were based on the state. So California had very strict restrictions. So we had to close and we stayed closed for almost over a year, I think a year and a half. So the first thing that we did was we got our artists, as many as possible, onto technology. Some had cell phones or iPads already. And, because we're in San Francisco, we got donations from Google and Apple to get more technology for our artists. So we got them technology. And then we started to have classes by Zoom and online. So we made supplies of art materials and we brought them to people's homes. And they had materials at home and we'd have classes online. We also had group Zoom sessions that were just about community. So we'd have time to have tea together or to express anxiety together or to do yoga together or something because many of our people were so isolated during this time. Of course, the artists didn't have to participate, but almost all did. And for the ones that didn't want to participate, we'd at least try to call them on the telephone once a week to see how they were doing, if they needed anything, to let them know we were thinking of them. Some artists did quite well because they were happy to work at home and they didn't have to take the bus and they felt comfortable there. And some artists did not do so well because they worked in ceramics or they made very big work or things they couldn't do at home. And plus everyone missed the community and their friends. Right now, we're only allowed to serve about half of our artists in person because we need more space around them. So we're still working half in person and half online, and that alternates. So if you would come in 4 days a week normally, you'd probably come in 2 days a week now, and 2 days a week on Zoom. So that's the way we're operating now.
긴 시간 정말 자세한 설명 정말 감사드리고요. 정말 궁금한 것들이 제가 많이 해결이 됐고 좀 이렇게 막연하게 느꼈던 것들이 좀 더 구체적으로 느꼈던 것 같습니다. 마지막 질문을 좀 드리겠습니다. 이제 74년에 설립이 됐다 그러니까 이제 50년이 다 되어 가는데 앞으로 CG 센터가 특별한 목표나 구체적인 과제를 가지고 있다든가 하는 부분이 있으면 그런 부분을 말씀해 주시면 감사하겠습니다.
Yes, let me say thank you first, and then I'll answer that. So thank you very much for inviting me. I wish you the best luck with your program and the work you're doing with your artists, and also for this symposium and conference that you're presenting. And you have my email, so please let me know if I can be of help to you as a colleague. So the answer to the question is for our 50th anniversary. I think the challenge we have right now is one is sort of recovering from COVID, so getting the program back to normal, but we all have that challenge right now. In terms of the artists in the field, disability and disability advocacy is changing right now. And how do we have our artists with disabilities grow and serve increasingly as leaders in the organization? So one of the things we are trying to do with that is the examples I've showed you, where two artists come into the gallery and they make their own shows. So we are looking at having the artists be involved in as many decisions for the organization as possible. So we have artist committees that help make programming decisions, artistic decisions, decisions about the building and when we do things. So that's our greatest opportunity, is to really change the way that our artists participate in the program. I like to say that an artist like Dan Miller, who I showed, or William Scott, who are very well-paid, highly recognized contemporary artists, should have the same opportunity as any successful contemporary artist. They should be able to work at Creative Growth, or they should be able to work independently as an artist in their own space. So what can we do to give them that same choice? So I think that's our future together.
마지막 답변이 정말 감동적이네요. 진심으로 감사드립니다.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.